Think about the last time someone asked something of you, and you said yes, but every part of you meant no. You felt it, that quiet collapse inside, that small surrender. You smiled, you nodded, and somewhere beneath the surface, you disappeared. And you've done it so many times, you stopped noticing the moment you disappear. This isn't weakness, and it isn't kindness either. This is something far more complicated and far more important to understand. Because the inability to say no is not a personality trait. It is a wound, and it has a name. Psychologists have studied compliance for decades, and what they have found is this: most people do not say yes because they want to. They say yes because they are afraid of what no will cost them. Afraid of disapproval, afraid of conflict, afraid of being seen as cold, selfish, or difficult. But here is what they rarely ask: where did that fear come from? The answer, almost always, begins in childhood. As children, we learn a quiet equation. Love equals approval. Approval equals safety. And safety, real emotional safety, begins to feel conditional. If you were praised for being agreeable, for not making waves, for putting others first, your nervous system learned something. It learned that your needs were less important than theirs. That saying yes was how you stayed loved. That saying no was how you risked losing it. You were not born a people pleaser. You were taught to be one. There is a psychological concept you may not have heard of. It is called the fawn response. You know fight. You know flight. You may know freeze. But fawn is quieter. Fawn is the response that says, if I make myself useful enough, pleasant enough, agreeable enough, the threat will go away. The fawn response was first identified by trauma therapist Pete Walker. He described it as a survival mechanism used by people who grew up in environments where conflict felt unsafe, where a raised voice meant punishment, where the wrong answer meant withdrawal of love. So you learned something subtle but powerful. You learned to read the room before you read yourself, to scan for other people's emotions before checking your own, to offer agreement before you even knew what you felt. And here is the cruelest part. People who fawn are often described as kind, as generous, as easy to be around. They are praised for the very mechanism that is slowly erasing them. Because what looks like generosity on the outside can feel like quiet exhaustion on the inside. Some people don't say yes because they want to help. They say yes because they don't feel real unless they are needed. There is a cost to this. Every yes that should have been a no is a small withdrawal from yourself. It seems insignificant in the moment. One favor, one compromise. But they accumulate until one day you look at your life, your time, your energy, your relationships, and you don't recognize what belongs to you anymore. You slowly stop living from the inside and start reacting to everything around you. Psychologists call this external regulation. Your mood depends on their reaction. Your sense of worth depends on their approval. And resentment begins to grow. Not always loudly. Sometimes it grows in silence, in small withdrawals, in the way you start to feel tired around people you once loved. You didn't become resentful by accident. You became resentful because you kept giving what was never yours to give. If something in you recognizes this, stay with it, because what comes next changes how you see every yes you've ever given. Here is what nobody tells you about saying no. It is not an act of rejection. It is an act of identity. Every no you speak is a declaration. It says, I exist. I have limits. My presence in your life is not unconditional. People who say no do not love less. They do not care less. In fact, studies consistently show that people with healthy boundaries report stronger, more honest relationships. Because a yes that comes from choice carries weight. A yes that comes from fear is just compliance, and people can feel the difference. Think about the people in your life you trust the most. Are they the ones who agree with everything you say? Who never disappoint you? Or are they the ones who tell you the truth, even when it's uncomfortable? Who can say, "I can't do that for you," and mean it? The people we trust most are the people whose yes actually means yes. And that is only possible when no is allowed to exist. But understanding this doesn't make it easy, because the moment someone looks at you with disappointment, the old fear comes back. So what actually helps? Learning to say no is not a single decision. It is a practice. A slow, uncomfortable, necessary practice. And it begins with something small. The pause. The next time someone asks something of you, before you answer, pause, even for 3 seconds, and ask yourself, am I saying yes because I want to, or because I'm afraid of what happens if I don't? That question changes everything. If the answer is fear, you have a choice. Not an easy one, but a real one. Start small. Say no where the cost is low. The invitation you didn't want, the favor that asked too much, the conversation you didn't have the energy for. And notice what happens. Most of the time, the catastrophe you imagined doesn't arrive. The relationship doesn't collapse. The person doesn't leave. What arrives instead is something unfamiliar, something almost strange. Relief. And slowly, through repetition, through the quiet evidence of surviving the discomfort, your nervous system begins to learn something new. That no does not mean abandonment. That no is the beginning of self-respect. You will still feel the pull, even after you understand it, even after you've practiced it 100 times. Someone will ask, and the old fear will rise again. For a moment, you will want to return to yes. That is not failure. That is a wound, learning how to heal. But here is what you carry forward. Every time you honor your limits, every time you choose yourself without apology, you begin to rewrite the equation you were taught. That you are not here to be endlessly available. That your presence is not a transaction. That love, real love, does not require you to disappear into it. You are allowed to say no, always, when it's honest. If this stayed with you, don't rush past it. Some ideas are meant to echo, and this might be one of them.